it's great. Obviously, it's amazing. It's a dream. But then at the same time, it's like, well, I hit this crazy goal that I've been working for years. It's like, well, now what?
Welcome back, everybody, to Be the Trader. Today, I have a return guest who is going to be sharing from a long bias perspective how he trades. And we're going to be sharing charts. So if you're watching, you're in for a treat. If you're listening, don't worry, because we're not just going to share charts. We're going to be talking a lot about trading in general, like we normally do, but we will have a section where we go deep into a trade, maybe one, maybe two, if we have time. But I want you guys to know, all of y'all, if you can, make sure to share this show because Dan Irish is back and he's going to be sharing very details. And make sure to go back if you're curious about who he is. If you don't know who he is, then you need to go check him out on the first episode where we go deep into his journey. But then also we'll share his link to his Twitter so that way all of y'all can go follow him and learn more about him. So Dan, welcome back to the show, man.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me back, man.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So I kind of want to get started with just, right now this month, and right now it's been kind of a slow month for me personally. And I'd love to just get into how the month has been and go from there. So how have things been going for you, man?
This month's been it's been my worst month in a couple of years, honestly. For right now, I'm break even, just literally break even for 3 weeks, and just it felt a little bit slower, a little bit choppier. But the key is adjustments needed to be made, and I think I just got a bit too comfortable with this hot explosive market. I just didn't make the adjustments, and admittedly, I got a bit lazy. I haven't been putting in the work on the weekends to really catch up on what the flows are, what kind of the chop is feeling like. And I just didn't make the adjustments. And I think in a weird way, getting to that million milestone in a way, it hurt me because it just made me want to push so much harder to go to even greater heights and to be the best that I can be. And I think it sounds good, but sometimes switching things up and being more aggressive like that, it kind of makes you more emotional, less logical. And I kind of feel like why I didn't make those adjustments.
That's interesting you said that. And I completely forgot, like you just crossed a great milestone, which you just mentioned, $1 million in trading profits, which is amazing. So congrats on that. And
Thanks.
and that for everyone's listening, that today is May 22nd, 2021. The date doesn't really matter per se, but it does for that first question. But in general, the only thing that matters is what we're going to be talking about moving forward, and process and mindset. And I'm very curious because you mentioned a couple of things. Number one, you said, I didn't adjust quick enough and you got kind of lazy in your process or whatever you used to do after or before. Can you explain a little bit more in detail what you mean by that?
Yeah. So when it comes to the market, you'll see different trends that appear. Sometimes there's a market where you might want to play 10 stocks a day, or 20. I mean, that's extreme, but you get the point. Everything's working. You can just see it off a scanner. If it sets up, you can take it. You can take something that's maybe illiquid because illiquid plays are exploding. And then there's times like now where it's like, okay, focus on maybe a few stocks, be really selective, only play the stocks that have good print rate and volume, because those are the only things that are really showing some consistency. And so I haven't adjusted. I've been trying to play everything, and you'll just take paper cut after paper cut, but those things add up, especially when you're taking the size that I was trying to push. And yeah, the adjustment would have been be more selective, really focus in on those plays that have the hottest.
That makes sense. And when did you start making that adjustment already, or are you starting to do that like now? And if you did, or if you didn't, what's your plan to make that adjustment?
I think just from some reflection, just, thinking back, okay, why have I had so many issues this month? And then just it kind of clicked. Oh yeah, this is the exact market where you got to be super selective. Oh, look at me trading 10, 15 stocks a day. I'm really blowing it here. It's pretty obvious what the issue is. I'm just over trading, in an environment that just doesn't call for it. It's just not proper for the environment right now. So I got to zone in, get way more selective and just slow it down.
how does one really see the environment change? Because I get that's a question a lot of traders are like, man, how do I see it changing? How do I know it's changing? And I know it could be an obvious question because you've been trading for some time, but for some people that's not. So could you explain how it's like, oh, like it's changing? How do you notice that?
Usually, if I can notice a flow or some tendencies, I'll stick to those tendencies and I'll be rolling, the profits will be rolling in. Then there will be a period of time where if something shifts or changes, all of a sudden the same things that I'm doing are not resulting in the same results. And I'll be taking losses and having a hard time. And then that's usually where I got to like zone in and be like, okay, something's different because I'm doing the same thing, but the results are not the same. So then you just look at, okay, well, yeah, a lot of these plays are actually failing for me when they used to work. And actually, these plays, maybe a few tickers might work really good and they're actually flowing for, some of them flow for all day. So you get one that's really hot and those flow for hours. So they're more like trend plays where you get to be really patient, let them work, but then avoid everything else. And so that's really how it's just for me, it's always been looking at my results. And yeah.
But how do you get away from that little thought where it's like, because sometimes you can make that excuse of maybe it wasn't the perfect setup, or maybe it wasn't as pretty as the other play that did work. Like, how do you distinguish that it was, the change in the market versus I'm being a little bit more loose on this setup because I'm just, what I'm saying? Like maybe it's not the perfect ascending triangle like it was before. You know what I'm saying?
It's just sample size. You trade for long enough and you get enough trades in. After a week of that, usually I can adjust within a week. And then, yeah, I'll have a week where it's maybe a red week or maybe some break even chop. And then I'll quickly adjust, quickly kind of change mindset and go for, what's working now. And then I'll pick things up again and I'll adjust very quickly. Now, like I said, because of those little mentality flaws that I had this month, I haven't adjusted at all. So for basically 3 weeks, I've been just not adjusting and not caring. Whatever the case, it's just I just didn't take the appropriate action. But now I'm kind of realizing it.
And does adjusting for you also adjust how you take profits as well?
Yeah. There are certain times where you want to be more scalpy, like quicker trades. And then there's certain times where you want to, if trend plays are hot, kind of like what we've been seeing lately with plays like U1. That play was definitely a trend play where it just runs all day. And if that becomes more consistent, then you're going to want to have more of a mindset of, okay, let me take a core position and try to hold that as a trend play. So it's just adjusting to kind of what's hot and what those flows are looking and feeling like.
And you said something also at the beginning, and you kind of brought it up again. You said normally I adjust pretty quickly, but with that mindset of crossing the $1 million mark, it kind of puts you in a mindset of I want to push harder, I want to grow, I want to do more, I want to be better. Can you talk about how that hurt you a little bit and go into a little bit more detail what you mean?
Yeah, it just comes down to, trading is a lot about progressing and wanting to be motivated to do better and progress. So when I get to that level, it's great. Obviously, it's amazing. It's a dream. But then at the same time, it's like, well, I hit this crazy goal that I've been working for years. It's like, well, now what? And it's like, and so I'm somebody who needs to really push myself to stay entertained and stay engaged. So then I just wanted to do more. And sometimes, most of the time when you force things and you try to force progression, it doesn't work out. You really got to go with the flow and kind of take what the market gives and just, get a little bit better each day. But as soon as you start consciously forcing it, that's when things you don't adjust. And like I said, whenever you're more emotional than logical, that's when you lose money in trading or don't perform.
And when you say you were forcing, do you mean forcing size or do you mean forcing plays that weren't there? What do you mean?
Just forcing plays that really weren't there. Like I was just taking too many trades that were unnecessary. when I could have been focusing on the plays that were actually proper. And, it's everything. It really is everything. It's oversizing in spots that I've no business being in. It's just all of that.
Gotcha. And what I'm curious about though is how did that only hit you now? Didn't that hit you when it crossed 100,000, like another number, like, 25, 30, 100, 250, 500, like, did it just affect you now?
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much just affected me now. Yeah, it's just the million from the very beginning, just that million number, the seven figures, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I always strived for. And I never really thought about what I would do if I crossed it because I never thought I would. So now that I have, it's like, well, a lot of reflection happens and a lot of different life things, and then you're realizing, okay, well, I might need to find other ways to be motivated now, rather than trying to be like, okay, well, let's go for 2 million or 3 million. Like maybe stepping back and not focusing about the money anymore, and other forms of motivation.
And talking about not focusing on the money anymore, would you say that when I know you have the goal, like you had the goal of seven figures, right? But were you focused on that while you were trading every day? I'm just very curious about that when you first started.
I mean, it was just something I would reflect on when I wasn't trading, like mostly weekends. It's just like, okay, what's my goal? Okay, million. Let's just keep working hard each day. Let's keep grinding. And it's a tricky thing when it comes to trading and thinking about money, because it depends on personality and it depends on your own mindset at any particular time. Because there's definitely times where if I don't think about the money, I do really bad. Because like if I don't have my profit up on the day, it's really important for me because I need to see, am I green today? Am I feeling the flow? Am I doing good? And then can I push it? And it's like, okay, if I'm red and I keep going red, slow down, So I kind of adjust on that sense. Trading with unrealized, I don't like that. I just think it's not good to do. And then, yeah, you got to think about the money because it's important. I mean, it's important to know, are you doing good? And if you're doing bad, you need to adjust. So that's the sense that I think it is important. It's not important if it's making you emotional though, right? Or it's not good if it's making you emotional, making you force things. So it's like a balance, like a push and pull.
It makes sense. And I like that you said you don't really look at unrealized because can you explain why you said that's bad?
That's just awful, because if you're going to see this number going up and down based on the positions in you're in, I mean, it's just going to make you emotional. There is no point. Just follow your trading plan. Don't look at unrealized.
I love it you said that, because that's a huge distinguishment. Because you just said, I'll look at my P&L, which I don't look at anything, but it's just cool that you said, but I don't look at the unrealized. And I think that's because that really does mess with a lot of people, right? And like you said, it'll make you get it out sooner, take an unnecessary loss, do X, Y, Z. But the realize it depends on the personality, like you said.
Yeah.
But like for you, it helps you understand because you don't get out until your plan or to your profits, and you've been trading for some time. It gives you an idea of like, okay, am I feeling the market? Should I take a step back or should I not? And I think depending on who you are listening right now, you should really go back and listen to what he was saying, how he distinguishes why unrealized is not important versus realized, because that might be able to help you stay in a trade that actually should be for you and work for you. And one thing I wanted to ask you too, man, is what now? Because you said at the beginning a couple of times, like, that was my goal. I had to do a lot of reflection to motivate myself. So what now? Like, what is your goal? And also on top of that, how does it feel in terms of you hit the mark? Like, how does it feel right now?
I mean, it feels great. It's this morning I was just thinking about it. It's like, well, I have 7 months left to perform. At this point, I've made more money than I did all of last year, and I'm in a really good spot. So there's no reason to be down. And really, there's just so much to be grateful for. So I think that really just going forward, discipline is going to be my motivator. I just want to go back to just being disciplined. And I mean, I'll always push to be better and do better. but I think discipline first, and just maybe my new long-term goal. Maybe next year, might be looking to get a house or something, right? So some life motivation to try to keep saving and keep doing the right thing and the responsible thing, is I think what's going to motivate me going forward to get back on track.
How old are you right now?
26.
It's wild. It's wild. That's congratulations again, man. That's awesome. So,
Thanks.
so I let's go in. And I told some people at the beginning, I told everyone who's listening, hey, we're going to maybe go into charts. So I'd love for you to share some recent trades, and maybe we can kind of like go into them of what you've been focusing on, and maybe share with some people and deep on what you see and why your thought process is what it is. So go ahead and take it away if you don't mind, Dan.
Sure. So I'm going to be going over this trade on LHDX, which is right now my best trade of the month, I believe, and just kind of talk about how I knew to get involved in this area, or why I did, at least why I felt the risk reward was proper enough to take this shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually starts with IHT. So on the 7th, IHT had a really big move, and I can get into maybe how, if you see this perk, you see some after hours action, if you see it off scans, you might want to put it on your watch list or something just to see, is something in the works here. Now, I didn't even notice that, but it's hard to not notice this. This is a crazy move, just from, 250 peaked at 580 here. It's just a crazy move, lots of volume, really nice. And so that's going to be on my watch list for at least a week, because, it's hot. It can do it again. It can set up again, potentially. Now, what happened on day 2? It consolidated a lot. I mean, I had a big pullback, consolidated. And then into the afternoon, kind of formed, this symmetric triangle here. Very illiquid, very low volume, but I mean, the structure is very proper. Also had kind of a stair stepper here that it was able to hold. So it's looking good. And I was took this spot, I got out for maybe small win or something. And then I got involved in this spot, and I sold it actually before the halt. So I just pretty much, I didn't know how much upside this could have. And I hadn't seen this a lot as far as the day 2 recovery, because what has been happening a lot is the day 3 has been the day where it surges again. So usually day 2 is just consolidation and avoid. Mm-hmm. But I noticed I had really good structure, so I still was dabbling with it. Did not see this coming, so I missed this whole thing. So in the future, you got to play like LHDX. And this play, perked and then was hot pre-market. I saw it, put it on my watch list, and this pulled back hard. And then I noticed, oh, hey, it's like doing the exact same type of consolidation that I saw IHT do. And so that's when I thought, well, I've got to get involved, because if it explodes like IHT, this is going to be great play. So I was able to buy in at this $6 area. Now, if you look at the picture, I actually bought in 10,000 shares, and then it was starting to go up. And then I saw like a 50,000 sell order on the ask. And that really scared me, because sometimes when a big sell order comes in, it'll like reverse dump. And especially on a play like this, where it's like, it was really far under VWAP, that can be trappy. That can be trappy sometimes, because it is really bearish. So I decided to sell off 5,000 shares. That was just so I could stay composed, still manage my trade with 5,000. Basically I adjusted my size so I would stay logical.
Yeah. And
then that 50,000 sell order got taken out. It started to go up, and I was like, sweet. So I held this for $2 a share, specifically because I had the insight from IHT that when it consolidated like that and it exploded, it did some crazy stuff. So it's kind of this was an example of how I use a different stock to get insight into a play and kind of the mindset of where I should take profits.
Was
Yeah,
this the same week?
let's see. This was on 5/12, and IHT kind of did this on the 10th.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was basically like a couple days after. So yeah, that's how I like to go about trading. It's you see crazy moves, you don't get involved in the really choppy, risky range, or at least I don't. I just prefer not to. But when they pull back and form kind of these low volatility structures on pullbacks, I like to get involved because things that spike like crazy spikes, they can do it again. So as long as they're hot, I'll watch them, and then as they fizzle out and kind of start, um, to start struggling and start their backside move,
Yeah.
I try not to long them. Although this perk here on IHT does interest me. And if it does kind of consolidate, I can definitely see a situation where it could curl, test these levels, and then have a major breakout to test 10.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that happening. That's why I'll continue to watch IHT as long as it's holding this range.
So I don't know if you're done. If you're done, I wanted to ask a question.
Sure. What's up?
So first off, for you typically, just curious, like to wait until it shows you that it has some type of proof, right? And not get involved in the first day.
I wouldn't say I'm not going to get involved in the first day.
Yeah.
It's mostly just I need some structure to show that it's holding a level and that there's some type of risk reward development happening.
Can you go in a little bit detail what you mean by structure for those who may be watching and be like, what does he mean? Because I see what you're drawing here, obviously, but yeah, just to explain.
It's just structure. Like it's just this range, it's held the range for a long time. It's forming the structure. It's kind of like you're not going to go into a house that doesn't have a good foundation because you don't want the house to fall on you. You need it to be structurally sound. I'm not going to enter a stock unless it's structurally sound and safe. So that's kind of what I mean by that. It's just finding those structures that you find consistency with. Honestly, there's probably thousands. I mean, like you can think of anything that you want in trading, and if you find consistency with it, you can do it. I mean, that's all it comes down to.
And the idea behind, like, it seems like you get involved sometimes when there's no volume, but there has been volume in the past. Can you explain what your mindset behind that, or do you wait until some kind of perk and volume? Like, can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, it's like when it's crazy and volatile, there's going to be a lot of volume. When it washes out, it's kind of like that energy is slowing down. It's like if you think of stock trading as a game, maybe soccer, and you got to hit that soccer ball. Your goal is to hit soccer ball. If it's in the air and it's going crazy, you're not going to be able to get an accurate, good hit. You're going to need it to bounce, settle that energy down. And then once you feel comfortable that ball is kind of in a spot where you can get a really good hit, you're going to hit it. That's what I kind of do with my trading. I wait till the bounce is slowing down, and then I can get that consistent, really hard, good hit. So you're kind of I am anticipating that the volume is going to return. It's not like I see the volume. Sometimes you got to get involved before the big volume comes in. It's tricky, right? Because if you get involved too early before it's really proven itself, you can get caught in a dump. That's the downside of an anticipation strategy. Sometimes you get caught in a dump. That's why I really try to wait for these developments and structures to get really good before I get involved so that I have the highest chance of it going the way I want it to go.
What does that mean though? Like really good to get involved. What do you mean by that?
Well, it means in this area, these candles are higher volatility than this area.
Yes.
Look at how small and cute looking the candles get. They're nice and tiny, cute. And it's held this horizontal range for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at this is low volatility too, but it just had a big dump and it's stuck in a descending, range. So I'm not going to get involved here expecting it to pop up right away because it's far under, on this day, it's far under VWAP. It's like, this needs to prove itself. I'm not just going to get involved here. And it did prove itself by holding that range all day. And then because I noticed a hot trend, I guess I would say, on IHT, I was willing to go for it with LHDX because, man, I saw this and just, it was on my monitor to my right. Just I had it up on one of the tiny charts, and I look over. I'm like, that's held a really, really, held the range all day. It looks just like IHT. Let me pull this up. 5 minutes later, I was in the trade. So, nice. I mean, you're talking just reactionary, just by looking at that TA and being like, wow, that's getting really clean. So it was just spur of the moment type thing, And so a lot of things in trading, it's just from being around. So just from being actively present, you'll pick up on little tendencies, little things, and then you'll take action when you see something good. So I think screen time is really important for me personally, just because of how I trade.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Dan. I love that you said that, because a lot of the best trades you'll recognize because you saw something else. And everyone who's watching this right now or listening, if you're driving, just know you got to really pay attention to what Dan said and listen to the beginning. He said, I saw what IHT did, and then I looked at that, and that was an opportunity to learn from, even though maybe he traded it, maybe he didn't. But the next trade that, displays itself and says, hey, I'm similar movement, you can take advantage of that because the market kind of moves in little cycles, those mini cycles within the small cap world, which is awesome. You mentioned also something about VWAP. It was under VWAP, but you still took the trade. I know a lot of traders I personally don't use VWAP, but some traders really, really look at VWAP as, if it's under, I can't long it. If it's over, I can't short it. Can you explain why that? I mean, does that really? I mean, can you explain how you view VWAP, or do you see it that way? What do you think?
Well, it's not an absolute. So what I mean is, like, if it's under, sometimes I'll long it. If it's over, sometimes I'll avoid it. Like, it's not something that I use in that sense. It's just something to get an overall feel for. And I would have VWAP up on these charts, but as you know, VWAP can only be shown on the day of. So it's, I can't show it right now. But when you're actively trading, if you have VWAP up, you'll kind of get a feel for how, in relation to it, the stock is flowing. You'll just see little things that can give you a small edge over time and help you.
Yeah.
It's just something I prefer to have up. I've compared it to kind of like if you're diving, like, I don't dive, but deep sea divers, like, they go into those caves, scary stuff. They're going to have their line. They're going to bring their line with them so that they can get out of that cave. And I feel like VWAP is kind of that line. It's just something that you get a feel for. It's like your safety net to kind of get that overall feel of what that stock is doing.
How do you not let it dictate you not placing a trade when it's a good setup and maybe it's under VWAP, like it was in this case? Like,
what I would say is that if the average flow is on average, like, around VWAP, it's something you can take a trade on. If it's far under VWAP, if it opened under VWAP and it's just dove under VWAP, it's so far under it, I'll usually just avoid those because those are just so bearish. And I'm not saying they can't work, I just find that a lot of traps and a lot of dumps occur when it's really far under VWAP. Yeah. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. It could even be something where you might take less size, if it's super far under VWAP, but you still think it's decent, well, maybe I'll adjust and won't take that big size. So it's kind of things like that, little things like that. And I did want to quickly mention on IHT, now on the following day, something like this, like it had a pullback. Mm-hmm. And a range, a descending range, and then it was able to kind of form some structure and have another insane move. Now, I actually thought that LHDX would do the same. So this is just a quick example of when something actually doesn't really follow the trend and doesn't really do what I expected. So it was in a descending range here. It was able to bottom out. Now look at this structure. It forms a really, really nice structure. So I thought that this would lead to something crazy. I thought, okay, great. It's going to shoot back up. It's going to consolidate, and it's going to make a major rip and retest some of this 750 resistance. I was sold on that idea. Like I was convinced. So let me see. I've got the trade right here. I took massive size. I mean, this is the biggest size I've taken in a long time. I was really pushing it. I took 20,000 shares, around 612 average. It didn't work. And I ended up having to cut around, I don't know, 608. So I took a massive, not a massive loss, but a pretty substantial loss on this. I think about $1,500.
Yeah.
It could have been much, much worse. Because if I don't cut, it starts going against me. I might panic sell in the 550 area. That's just a massive loss. Really glad I cut. But I just want to show that, like, just because you have a hint into what could be, or what, a hint of what has great risk reward, doesn't mean much as far as the win rate. I mean, really, the stocks are so random. Sometimes it works, sometimes they don't. All I knew was that if this took off, it had amazing risk reward. Imagine if I got the move to the 750, man, that would be like 30. I don't even know how much. a ton.
Yeah. I want to talk about this real quick because I'm so thankful you brought this out, because it's so true. Like, because someone might watch this and be like, oh my God, I'm going to place a trade. And first off, don't ever follow any of us. Don't ever just do it and just go all in. That's really dumb. And you should never do that. But this is a pure example of sometimes they don't work. And I want you I'm very curious on this trade. When you got in, it looks like you had a tight risk. And also, when it went up, where did it go up to? Like when it did kind of work temporarily, where did it go up to? Like
so it went to 630.
Okay, so this is great. So like even if you were risking like $6 and you got in at 612, you're up 2-1 already, right? Pretty much. My question is, because a lot of people don't. I'm just very curious what your mindset was, because you thought it could go higher. Is there any reason you wouldn't take any profits at all? Like, oh my God, I'm up. I should take something. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just logic. Like, it's just very logical to wait, because something like IHT, it really did the same thing. I mean, it formed that kind of wedge in the morning. It was descending, right?
Yeah.
It breaks down and then it recovers, kind of, and forms some structure, and then made a run from 4 to 8. It doubled. So I'm not going to sell something, when I'm up 20 cents and I think it could potentially go $2-3, I'm not going to sell it. That to me is just stupid. And so I'm just accepting the variance. Sometimes it's not going to work and I'm going to sell my position for a loss. But when it works and I follow my plan, I'm going to go on a giant upswing, because I'm going to make 20, 30, 40,000. Yep. So it just comes down to not caring. You got to stay logical and not care.
Do you feel like that's something that has really helped you grow? Like in terms of just being okay with, hey, if I think my plan is going to be 3, 4, 10x the profits, I'm not going to take 2x. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to wait.
Yeah. This year, I've definitely done a lot of that. I know when I was first on the show, when you had me on, I specifically talked about how that was something I wanted to work on, being a bit more logical with my plans and giving them more time. And I think in 2021, I've really done that. I've really been more patient. I've really followed my plans better. And I've been doing good at it. And I think that is why I've had kind of this exponential growth so far this year, is specifically because of that. I'm staying more logical.
What was that growth this year, by the way?
Right now, I'm up about 600,000.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a whole lot. That's a big growth.
In 2020, I think I ended the year around 440. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's been good. And that's really just been down to sizing up a little bit. But more than anything, I've just been following my plans more.
Nice. Good stuff, man. And the only thing I have last to ask really about this, and if you want to go into anything else, you can. That's up to you. But I'm very curious on just highlighting the point at the very beginning. You said, I got in about 10,000 shares and then I got out half because I saw something on the ask. Can you explain just why it's important to be able to just be flexible and be okay with taking those baby cuts? Maybe it didn't work on a play that may not have all the volume right now, because this is more of like waiting anticipation mode.
Yeah. I mean, basically, when you see something like that, I mean, maybe I took it a little too seriously, but you can see if I zoom in here, you can see when that happened. So they put it on there about 613 area, and the market reacted to it. They panicked because they didn't like that, and they went all the way back down to 599. Now, sometimes when you got these plays that are under VWAP like this,
Yeah.
They'll panic when something like that happens, and they'll dump. So I cut half because I felt like, first of all, I mean, I need to stay logical, and that I could just feel the emotion, like the fear come over me when I saw that giant order. So I just cut half to mitigate my risk. Yeah, I'm not going to make as much profit if it works, but in trading, I think it's better to always focus on your risk management before thinking about profits. I mean, that's going to help you, in the long run, for sure. You got to protect your capital. So I just cut half because 10,000 was a big size for me anyways.
Yeah.
And look, I just wasn't comfortable. Decided to reevaluate and adjust and cut half. Just do what makes you feel comfortable and do what you got to do to really follow your plan. And I knew I had to cut half there to follow my plan.
I love that, man. And you also mentioned during that there was a big seller on the time and sales and on the level 2. And so I'm very curious, does that really, I know in this case, it kind of puts you were paying attention to that. Do you more times than not pay attention to big sellers or big bidders, or do you find that it could be fake? Can you explain that, your thought process?
I mean, like in this situation, it affected me. Sometimes I take it into account more than other times. I think in a situation like this, it just threw me off because it's like it had really nice consolidation and it's breaking out. It just threw me off why a huge order would just come slamming in right basically as it's breaking out. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So that, and sometimes when things like that happen, it's a fake out. And I think at the time too, I didn't realize how much volume this had in the morning. So I didn't really take a look and be like, oh, wow, each minute it was trading over 2 million volume. So now that I look at that, it's like, well, you know what? A 50,000 order, if you think about the scale of the volume, it's really not that big. So I think I kind of misjudged it. I didn't realize, like I said, I just didn't realize it was this liquid in the morning. So I think maybe if it was like 200,000, that would be more significant in a situation like this. But the point kind of stands, it's just, if something makes me uncomfortable, it's going to make other people uncomfortable and it might make the play fail. So
I like what you said, that keeping in context the volume that it did during the day or at some point when it had movement, because that was a very good point. Because if it's not, it may say 10,000 shares, but if it's trading 100,000, a million per minute, that's really insignificant. And so I like that you said that, because I used to fall for that all the time. So like, that's a good point. And when it comes to the idea of being comfortable in the play, you've really highlighted that. You're like, you know what, if I'm not comfortable, I may not get out because it's still in my plan, but I'm going to make myself comfortable and be okay with that, because you're right. It's a long run. And if it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. And that's really what you're focused on. So thanks for sharing that, man. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up at all? Or are we kind of like done with this chart?
I'm pretty much done, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, I nailed this morning move on U1. I could go quickly into that. It's just up to you.
If you don't want to. Yeah, go ahead if you want.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just like, okay, it had an insane move from 6 to 1170. It's in this descending kind of pattern, okay? And then what I noticed, though, is that in the morning, it kind of, again, forms some structure where it's like, it's not the cleanest structure ever. It's a bit choppy. It's kind of hard, but it pulls back to a support zone from the day before. So you got like all this support here and all this, and consolidation all in this zone. So when it's able in the morning to hold this, and I think the most important part on things like this is the fact that it's pulled back from such a crazy number. So it is a pretty significant pullback. And it's like, okay, well, if it holds this dip, it could absolutely kind of pop back up and retest some of these levels. So in this area, what I saw or how I was thinking of it was this is like a bottom and this is a bottom. So this is like your double bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it's curling out of this, I took 2,500 shares at 9 or 902. And I got just the instant pop out of the triangle. So it broke out of the triangle. And I was able to sell it around, I think I sold it like 10.15. Okay, so I made like $2,500 on U1.
Yeah.
Really good play, just a quick scalp on something I thought would retest these levels. And the reason why I went for it, again, you'll hear me say it again and again, structure. So it's just like this structure I was comfortable with. I think the price zone where it held and where it came from, it just made a lot of sense to me. It could bounce. So that's kind of how you want to think about trading. It's just like, what zone is it in? Where is it coming from? How hot is the stock? Where do I think it could bounce to, or what are the possibilities? You kind of want to ask those questions.
I love that you said that, because the main takeaway I'm taking away from this as well, which I'm sure everyone's going to take away, is what you just said. The structure is so important. And the example of having a house, you get structure, soccer, and how you view trading. If you're like, what the hell are you talking about, Alex? That means you didn't pay attention. Go back and listen to what Dan was saying there, rewind this. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I need to share this with my other traders because I need them to see this episode where Dan actually dives deep. And thank you so much for doing this, man. I one last question before we start to wrap this up. On that trade right there on U1, when you got in, because you said scalp, to me, it doesn't look like a scalp. So I'm trying to understand, what would you cut it when you did get in? Like, do you think I'm just going to cut it if it doesn't work right away? Do you think if it breaks below a level, what's your process on this type of a play?
So on a play like this, where it held a tight range and there, it's just a spot where it should explode. So if I'm getting in here and it's just like for minutes, can't do much, I'm probably cutting. It's kind of a time frame approach where it's like, it's just so obvious. If it doesn't work like it should, usually it's not going to work. I mean, that's not always true, but, and I say scalp because to me, a scalp is more like how long you're in. If I'm in for minutes, I consider that a scalp no matter how high it goes. So to me, a scalp is just time. I know that it differs based on like the person, you can think about a scalp as like a percentage. You can think of it like anything really, but to me, it's just time. Gotcha.
And I guess, that's pretty much all I have for you, Dan. Is there, if you'd like, if you can take a quick second, maybe if there's anything else you want to wrap up with, or at least let people know where they can find you if they have any further questions or just want to follow you and learn more.
Sure. I mean, my Twitter, at Dan's Game Poker, that's where I post most of my trades. Well, not most of my trades, but that's where you're going to see the most insight into my trades. And you can definitely follow me on there. And I just plan on continuing to try my best, continuing to grow as a trader and share stuff that I think is cool. And, giving back to basically the community that helped build me. I just feel like that's something good to do. And I like helping people too. So, and thank you for having me on the show, man.
Hey, man, no worries. It's a pleasure to bring you back. The show is all about giving back, helping the community, improve the community for the better. And you're doing that, and you're doing it perfectly right now, because I know so many people are going to go back and watch this, and they're going to be like, oh, my God, like this is amazing stuff. Let me share it with other people. And they're probably going to DM you and ask you, just be like, thank you. So thank you so much, man. Thank you.
And I've got the free YouTube videos too. So if you go to my Twitter, I've got a link right in my bio for the YouTube channel, just so I've got a ton of free content on there that if you want to check it out, I'm sure you'll get something out of it.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Dan, and have a blessed day, brother.
Awesome. Thanks, man. See ya.